as a matter of fact, began his political career campaigning around this nation against Medicare. Now we have an opportunity to move toward national health insurance with an emphasis on the prevention of disease, an emphasis on outpatient care, not inpatient care, an emphasis on hospital cost containment to hold down the cost of hospital care for those who are ill. These are the kind of elements of a national health insurance important to the American people. Governor Reagan, again, typically is against such a proposal.
Governor, there you go again.
That was then California Governor Ronald Reagan in 1980 during the debate against President Jimmy Carter. With that response, Reagan was able to undercut Carter's attack, even though Reagan had said Medicare would lead to a total loss of freedom in America. The exchange is one of the many consequential moments discussed in the new book entitled The Highest Calling, Conversations on the American Presidency. And its author, David Rubenstein, joins us now. He served as Deputy Assistant to President Carter for Domestic Policy and as co-founder and co-chairman of the private equity firm, the Carlyle Group. This looks amazing. Welcome to the set. I, of course, jumped to the pages my daughter's in, checking it out first.
I worked with your father for many years at the White House. I didn't realize you were going to bring back that debate because there's a very famous line that Reagan gave, but the truth was he wasn't really telling the truth because Reagan said to Carter, there you go again. But what Carter had said was actually accurate, which is that Reagan had opposed Medicare.
So talk about The Highest Calling, why you set out to write this book. The timing seems quite good.
Well, I worked in the White House as a young man. My hair was darker and I was a little thinner. And I worked with your father as well. I have spent some time in Washington over the last 30 plus years since I left the White House, and I've gotten to know some people who've served as president, and I've gotten to know scholars who've written about presidents, and I thought it'd be interesting to interview those scholars and also interview some of the presidents. So I interviewed some of the living presidents, including President Biden and President Trump, former President Trump. And I wanted to remind people about the importance of voting. I want people to get to know the presidents and the candidates and vote. We have 80 million people in this country who are eligible to vote who don't vote. So last time we had about 160 million people vote, but we had about 80 million people who could have voted but didn't vote. And I think our democracy would be stronger if more people voted.
David, would like that you're bringing some Orioles energy to the set this morning with your black and orange tie. You got Red Sox, Yankees, and Orioles.
AL East is
well represented here this morning. You mentioned your interviews with President Biden and former President Trump. I'm curious what's about some of your reflections, given what we're going to see tonight about Donald Trump. Said he had no regrets when you talked to him about anything in his presidency. He talked about it being a lonely job. What else did you glean from that conversation about him?
Well, President Biden.
About former President Trump.
President Trump. President Trump gave me the interview. I've known him for a while, and he gave me the interview before a trial that morning. And so I spent about an hour on the phone with him. I wasn't physically with him at that time, and I didn't think he's a person who has a lot of regrets. He's not a person who looks back and says, I'm sorry I said this, or I'm sorry I did that. That's just not his style. But he obviously is a person who's committed to what he believes in. And I think underestimating him is a mistake. And many times Americans have underestimated him.
Yes.
And that's been a mistake. And I think it'd be a mistake to underestimate him now. For example, the New York Times poll the other day showed he's technically 1 point ahead. And so it's going to be a very close election one way or the other. Debates probably will change a little bit, but debates usually do is reaffirm people's existing views. They don't really get people to switch parties or things like that.
So, David, these are such disparate characters here. Clinton, Bush, Trump, Biden, just to name a few, all seeking that highest calling. Are there any through lines that you gleaned? Is there any consistencies from any of these people who seem on the surface so wildly different?
Well, ambition is one. Nobody tries to be president because they don't want to be president. They get there generally by trying to get there. These are people that are smart, hardworking. They're very focused on what they believe in. And I think many of these people have a level of ambition that most of us don't really recognize. Because to say out of 330 million Americans, I'm the most qualified to be president of the United States is a daunting thing, but most of them, that's what they're really saying. And I think the highest calling, the reason I called it that is, in many ways, by saying tongue-in-cheek over the years, private equity is the highest calling. And while it's a high calling, it's not quite as high a calling as probably being president of the United States.
Do you find, David, in your study that, there are different types of leaders, some that have a vision for the world and some that are just driven by their ambition. Do you go into that in the book on the difference between what motivated the presidents you talked about?
Yes, they're all motivated because they believe they have the ability to do something nobody else in the country can do at that time, which is to lead the country. And some get there by circuitous routes. Some work their way up. Some came, like Donald Trump, from nowhere. But they all have a certain view that they can do something nobody else can do. And they all are leaders. They all want to make the country better. Nobody becomes president because they want to make the country worse. They want to make it better. And I think what I'm trying to do in the book is to say, read about these presidents, learn about them, because if you're going to make an informed decision, you should know about the candidates. Jefferson used to say that a representative democracy works only if you have an informed citizenry. Unfortunately, sometimes people don't know as much as I think they should know about the presidential candidates. And what I'm trying to do is to get people to both vote and be voting intelligently. Read about the candidates. Make sure you know what you're doing when you go to vote.